They have, however, been brought together again, ironically as a result of Elton's bad publicity. Well, Annie asked him what had caused the split.
Basically, I was exhausted mentally and physically. I didn't know what I wanted out of life. The voice thing coming out. I wanted to stay in Australia, watch the cricket. I don't know. I can't explain what it was. I couldn't even explain it to her, actually. It was nothing to do with a great big row or anything like that. And she took the whole situation very well because she's a very elegant and very... She's a great lady. And she understood that, and she went away, and she lived in London for a while. And when all this thing in the Sun happened, I said, listen, you've got to come back here, because she was being hounded as well. And so we went through it together, and it brought us back together. Every couple's going to have their ups and downs, whether it's with me or a show business or any occupation. And it's nice that she's back, and I'm not a very good person to live with as far as, like, I'm very deep. I get up in the morning, I don't say a word for an hour or so. I don't talk very much, which is one of my faults. You wouldn't have judged it by the way I'm going on here. But, I mean, with the relationship, because I think basically, because I've been so busy. I mean, I've had 3 or 4 years of just doing non-stop work. When I've been, actually, that's 3 or 4 years I've been married. So it was nothing to do with her at all. It was me trying to work my own self out. And as a result of this, it's all come back together again, which is lovely.
Yeah. Do you love each other?
I always will love her, yeah, absolutely. I think she loves me and I love her. You know, it's just certain situations, right, where we'll have a row or we'll have a parting of the ways for a couple of months. But, I mean, that happens to every couple. I think we understand each other a lot more because of what's gone on. And yeah, I do love her. I always will.
I think everybody was very sad when you put out that statement saying that you were going to be separated. Do you think you were forced into putting out that statement?
I wasn't forced into it, but, I mean, it was very hurtful for her. It kind of was a bit forced. Like the press actually, and again, saying that I think the press treated us very well because I think the press knew there was something wrong, and I kept saying, no, it's okay, and she did as... and in fact, it wasn't as good as we were making it out to be. And I think the press could have hauled us over the coals a lot more than they did, and I think they were very supportive in that. And I'd like to thank them for it. They could have had a heyday with Renata and I, but they didn't.
Conducting a marriage in the spotlight can't be easy. Anyway, I mean, you're probably much more used to the spotlight than Renata ever was.
Yeah, Renata was just an engineer in a studio, but she's adapted so well to the lifestyle. I mean, it hasn't been easy. But I think she's a very elegant lady, and she's a very dignified lady. And whatever she's done in the situation that we parted was nothing to do with her. It was to do with my brain being fried after 3 or 4 years hard work. So she's been wonderful.
Do you feel very protective towards her?
Yeah, that's why I said, listen, you can't stay in London when this is going on. Come back here, for God's sake. Yeah. I always will do, yeah. She's special. I mean, there are very special people in my life, 3 or 4 special people, and she's one of them.
And indeed, at the time of all that bad publicity, Elton John speaking to Anne Diamond. There's 4 more where that came from during the rest of the week.
Hello again. Elton John's had a lot to cope with in the last year, but perhaps one of the worst moments came when he faced a throat operation and the prospect that he might never sing again. Well, thankfully, as we know, Elton came through the operation with his voice intact. Well, in the second of her interviews with Elton, Anne Diamond asked him if the new voice was any different to the old one.
I have a feeling, having just hummed around the house and stuff like that, that my voice will be richer after the operation. It's slightly deeper, and it's certainly stronger, because I haven't really been doing that much. The only way to cure something like that after an operation is rest, which coincided with the fact that I wasn't going to tour for a couple of years anyway. So it's definitely going to be stronger and richer, and that's fine. I'm really enjoying being a singer now, more so than the piano. I like playing the piano, but I like singing as well, so my technique will get better as well.
What was actually wrong with the voice? What symptoms first came to hand? Why did you know something was wrong?
It happened in America that I had to cancel the first 2 shows in America, or postpone them, because I just completely lost my voice altogether. And then I went to see some doctors in New York and various other places, and I knew there was something wrong with it, and I didn't want to cancel the tour to Australia, which was after the American tour, because of the opportunity to play with the orchestra. And I knew it would be a struggle, and I sort of kept back from people how bad it was, because I knew it was pretty bad. And then in Australia I saw a specialist who said, listen, you really shouldn't be playing, but if you want to come do the tour, that's up to you. Afterwards, I want to have you straight into and do the operation. It was a 50-minute operation, pretty minor operation. I wasn't dying or anything like that. And it was just really, am I speaking like that? I was a bit Marlon Brando-ish in The Godfather. Hey. But it turned out all right.
You just stayed in Australia watching the cricket?
I stayed in watching cricket, became a cricket groupie. God, if you go and see a cricket match, you're called a cricket groupie, that's fine. And I just went to holiday to the Barrier Reef and then came back to face, via Los Angeles, to face whatever was going to happen.
Yes. We were all celebrating recently the 20th anniversary of Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah.
And you said yourself you've got a 20th anniversary. But before we go into your 20th anniversary, you, at the Prince's Trust concert, paid an enormous tribute to the Beatles. When you came on stage and you were going to announce Ringo and George coming on, you said that without the Beatles, probably none of the rest of us would be here today. So you clearly have always been a Beatles fan.
Yes. Well, at the time that 60s thing happened with the Beatles, I was at school, at grammar school, and about 13, 14, everybody sort of was in a group, or there was a local group, more groups around than there are today, and I think the songs more than anything, and the fact that they were considered outrageous when they happened. I mean, God, with those haircuts and jackets, they influenced me just from the songwriting point of view. Lennon, McCartney, there's no question of it. No one will ever equal the quality, the amount of songs they wrote, the quality of the songs they wrote. Forget Roger Hammerstein, Lerner, I know people probably say, well, come on. But for the amount of songs they wrote, those two people were the finest songwriters of this century, by far. You
said you were at grammar school. Were you already a bit of a musician then? Did you know what you wanted to be?
I always knew I was a bit of a musician from about 3 or 4 years of age. So we always had music in the house. We had a piano, an upright piano, and my father was a trumpeter in a dance band, and my mother...
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so
and my auntie played the piano, and my mum always used to have a radiogram, and I grew up with Nat King Cole records, Doris Day and George Shearing and stuff like that, so I always had music around me. And I had a flair for playing the piano by ear, and then my parents made me go to lessons, and then afterwards I went to the Royal Academy of Music for 5 years as a junior exhibitioner, which meant that you go to school Monday to Friday, and then you go to the academy on Saturday mornings, and you do your homework Sunday, so I kind of resented it, really. But there was always music around. I remember my mother used to buy a couple of 78s every Friday, and so there was music surrounding me, so I always knew at an early age, no matter what, I mean, I didn't think I was ever going to be a singer. I played the piano, and then I played the organ in the group, and when I got fed up with playing to people in cabaret, backing up people, I thought I might become a songwriter. But I would have been happy selling records in a shop as long as it involved music. It's a tremendous advantage to know what you want to do.
Was football always there as well when you were a child?
Yes, because my father used to take me to Watford, and also I had a cousin who played for Fulham, and then Nottingham Forest, so football was always a big part of my life. Yeah.
Did you ever want to be a footballer?
I wouldn't have minded, but I didn't have the... at school, we played rugby, and you have to have a flair for that at an early age. You just don't become a footballer at 13, 14. You start when you're 6 or 7, and you have to have a flair for that. But I've always, deep down, loved to have been a sportsman, because it must be so wonderful if you're a successful sportsman, I hasten to add, because I think anyone would love to win a gold medal or play in a cup final or win Wimbledon. It must be a tremendous thing.
Well, he's not done too bad as a singer, really, has he?
Not at all. Not at all.
Can I just point out, if you switched on and saw Annie sitting there and wondered what was happening, and I don't know if you could detect she was still actually pregnant when she did that interview.
The headlines this year is Elton John. In the third of Anne Diamond's interviews with Elton this week, he talks about something all of the famous have to face, the press. And he asked him, first of all, if he'd been affected by that particular section of the press that had been hounding him, I think we could say, in recent months.
Everything seemed to come at once. It was in The Voice, a separation from Renata, the newspaper thing. Then there was another thing in the newspaper, in the national newspaper, that I was selling Watford, which is absolute nonsense. So I thought, God, something's got to go right sooner or later. And it has, you know, it was a pretty dismal time, but it's all over and done with now.
Other sections of the media, who were probably much more sympathetic towards you, said that this is getting ridiculous. We're going to drive this man out of Britain if we're not careful. And there were some stories saying that that it looked as though you were going to give up life in Britain and go and probably live in Australia or America. Were you ever near that?
Not really. I mean, it crossed my mind a couple of times, and I thought, well, this is ridiculous. You can't run away from a situation. But I mean, the thing that was wonderful about the whole situation is that I got so many letters from people I didn't even know. I got some wonderful friends anyway. I've always been lucky. But from people that I didn't know wrote me the most comforting letters, and to Renata, which were absolutely superb, and they kept one's chins up. And I also had a lot of support from the other press, which I'm very grateful for. And in fact, it more than reinstalled my faith in this country. You can't let things like that get to you, because that means that they would win. And it's not finished yet by any means. I mean, the last hasn't been heard of it, and I know that. And I'm more than ready for them.
Are you going to have the last laugh, or at least revenge?
That would be very sweet, and I would hope to, yeah.
The public, do you think they have a right to your private life?
I think they have a right to expect you to behave properly in private life, or if they come up to you and they want an autograph or a picture, and